It wasn't just a family sitcom. It was a show where the star demanded total control. The neighbor's face was hidden for a reason nobody expected, and one cast member's addiction nearly destroyed everything. Behind the tool-related humor and heartwarming lessons, Home Improvement was a battlefield of egos and secrets. These are 20 secrets about home improvement, hidden for decades. And the bonus? Wilson's fence wasn't tall enough, so they had to get creative. Number 20. Tim Allen was fresh out of prison when cast.
When I just got home, I saw my family. We have a lot. 7 boys, 2 girls. And I gotta say, after being with my brothers, I realized that men are pigs.
When Tim Allen auditioned for Home Improvement in 1991, most people in Hollywood knew his stand-up comedy, but had no idea about his criminal past. In 1978, Allen had been arrested at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport with over a pound of cocaine. He was facing life in prison under Michigan's harsh drug laws, but made a deal, providing names of other dealers in exchange for a reduced sentence of 3 to 7 years. He served 2 years and 4 months in federal prison before being released on parole in 1981. A decade later, Allen had rebuilt his life through stand-up comedy, but the conviction remained on his record. When Disney and ABC were considering him for Home Improvement, executives discovered his criminal history and panicked. They worried about the public relations nightmare of casting a convicted drug dealer as America's dad in a family sitcom. Allen was completely honest about his past, explaining that he'd made terrible mistakes as a young man and had spent a decade proving he'd changed. The network was divided, with some executives arguing they should find someone else and others believing in second chances. What ultimately convinced them was Allen's stand-up special and his genuine remorse about his past. They took a calculated risk that paid off spectacularly, though they kept his criminal history quiet for years, terrified of how audiences might react if they knew the Toolman had once been a federal prisoner. Number 19. Patricia Richardson wasn't the original Jill.
I'll let you ruin a perfectly good dishwasher just so you can get out your tools and play.
6 stores.
No.
One.
No.
One.
No.
When Home Improvement was being cast, the role of Jill Taylor went to Frances Fisher, an accomplished actress who seemed perfect for the part. Fisher filmed the entire pilot episode, established chemistry with Tim Allen, and was ready to commit to the series. Then something went wrong during post-production. The test audiences who watched the pilot with Fisher, as Jill gave lukewarm responses, particularly noting that the marriage didn't feel believable or warm enough. Disney executives watched the footage repeatedly, trying to determine if the problem was the writing, the direction, or the casting. They made the brutal decision to replace Fisher before the series was picked up, a devastating blow to an actress who thought she'd landed a career-defining role. Patricia Richardson was brought in as a replacement, filming new scenes that were edited into the existing pilot footage. If you watch that first episode carefully, you can occasionally notice slight differences in lighting and angles between scenes with Richardson and scenes featuring the original cast, remnants of the reshoot. Richardson brought a different energy to Jill, more grounded and relatable, creating the dynamic that made the Taylor marriage work for 8 seasons. Fisher was professionally gracious about being replaced, but the rejection stung deeply and she rarely discussed Home Improvement in later interviews. For years, fans had no idea the pilot had been partially reshot with a different actress, that the Jill they knew and loved was actually the second choice who'd been brought in to save a marriage that wasn't working on screen. Number 18. Earl Hindman hated hiding his face.
Tell you what they do in the newer tribe in Africa. They bring in a wise member of the tribe, usually an older newer, who helps counsel.
Wilson is Earl Hindman.
The camaraderie, the relationship with me and Tim.
Earl Hindman, who played the wise neighbor Wilson, spent 8 seasons with the lower half of his face hidden behind a fence, and he absolutely despised it. The gimmick seemed charming on screen, but for Hindman, it was professional torture. He was an accomplished stage actor who'd trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, someone who used his entire face to convey emotion and meaning. Being forced to act with half his face obscured felt like working with one hand tied behind his back. Hyndman argued constantly with producers about the fence, suggesting episodes where Wilson's face might be revealed, or at least scenes where the obstruction could be lowered. The producers refused every suggestion, viewing the hidden face as essential to the show's identity, and worried that revealing Wilson would destroy the mystique. What made it worse was that Hyndman knew the gimmick had destroyed his career opportunities outside Home Improvement. Casting directors couldn't see his face, audiences didn't recognize him on the street, and he became so associated with the fence pit that other roles dried up completely. He was trapped playing a character defined by what viewers couldn't see, his actual talent and range invisible behind a prop. Friends recall Hyndman becoming increasingly bitter about the situation, feeling that a comedy gimmick had essentially ended his serious acting career. After the show ended, he struggled to find work, typecast as the guy behind the fence, even though that's exactly what he'd spent 8 years trying to escape. Number 17. The boys were aging out, faster than the show could handle.
Just the basics, quick. All right. Tonight's dinner, do not eat with your hands.
Well, what if we're having chicken?
I think you've got a new girlfriend. Who is she?
Will you promise not to tell anybody?
She's that ugly?
Home Improvement's timeline moved slowly, with each season covering roughly 1 year of the Taylor family's life. But the 3 actors playing the boys were aging in real time, creating increasingly obvious problems as the series progressed. Zachary Ty Bryan, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and Taron Noah Smith were growing, their voices changing, their appearances maturing faster than the show's timeline could accommodate. By season 4, the producers faced a crisis. The boys looked years older than they were supposed to be, with JTT particularly affected by puberty that happened seemingly overnight. Scripts had to be constantly rewritten to address the actors' changing voices and appearances. Story arcs were accelerated, with characters suddenly graduating or entering new life phases earlier than originally planned. The most dramatic solution came with the middle child, Randy, who was written off the show entirely when Jonathan Taylor Thomas wanted to leave. They sent Randy to Costa Rica for environmental studies, a plot development that felt abrupt, but solved the problem of an actor who'd clearly outgrown playing a teenager. Taron Noah Smith, the youngest, became increasingly difficult to write for as he shot up in height, and his voice dropped, transforming from cute kid to awkward teenager in ways the show wasn't equipped to handle. The production team tried various tricks to hide or minimize the aging, strategic camera angles, clothing choices, even limiting certain actors' screen time. But ultimately, time was an enemy they couldn't defeat, and the show's later seasons bear the marks of a production struggling against biology itself. Number 16. Tim Allen controlled everything behind the scenes.
I am Tim, the landlord, Taylor. Of course, you all know my tenant, Al Borland.
While Tim Allen was officially just the star of Home Improvement, he wielded power over the production that went far beyond a typical actor's role. His contract gave him approval over scripts, casting decisions, and major creative directions, essentially making him an uncredited executive producer with veto power over anything he didn't like. This created constant tension with the actual producers and writers, who found themselves having to run every decision past Allen before proceeding. If he didn't like a storyline, it was killed regardless of how much work had gone into developing it. If he objected to a guest star, that person wasn't hired. If he felt a joke didn't land or made Tim Taylor look too foolish, it was rewritten on the spot. The writers particularly resented Allen's interference, feeling that their creative vision was being constantly compromised by an actor protecting his image, rather than serving the show's best interests. Some talented writers left Home Improvement specifically because they couldn't work under Allen's control, frustrated by the lack of creative autonomy. Patricia Richardson tried to push back against Allen's dominance, arguing for more balance in the power structure, but she lacked the contractual leverage to force changes. The rest of the cast simply accepted that Allen ran the show, knowing that challenging him would be career suicide. Behind the scenes, Home Improvement functioned almost like a dictatorship, with Allen making final decisions about everything from set design to cast member salary negotiations. The show's success validated his approach, but it came at the cost of creative freedom and left many people involved feeling like they were working for Allen rather than collaborating with him. Number 15. Jonathan Taylor. Thomas was miserable and wanted out. Jonathan Taylor. Thomas became one of the biggest teen stars of the 1990s through Home Improvement. His face on magazine covers, lunchboxes, and bedroom walls across America. Behind the scenes, he was desperately unhappy and counting the days until he could escape. JTT, as he was known, had been working since childhood, and by his mid-teens was exhausted by the relentless schedule, the constant public attention, and the lack of normal adolescence. He wanted to go to college, have privacy, experience life beyond sound stages and publicity tours. But his contract trapped him, and his massive popularity made the producers unwilling to release him early. The tension escalated throughout seasons 5 and 6, with JTT becoming increasingly difficult on set, missing rehearsals, showing up late, and openly expressing his desire to leave. Tim Allen tried to convince him to stay, arguing that leaving a hit show was career suicide, but JTT didn't care about maintaining fame. He just wanted freedom. Finally, during season 7, a compromise was reached where JTT's character Randy would be written off the show, allowing the actor to attend college while technically remaining part of the cast through occasional appearances. Those appearances never materialized. Once JTT left, he essentially disappeared from Hollywood, enrolling at Harvard and later Columbia, deliberately stepping away from the industry that had consumed his childhood. His departure devastated fans who'd grown up watching him, but for JTT, it was liberation, the chance to finally live on his own terms, rather than as a commodity being marketed to teenage girls who'd plastered his face on their walls. Number 14. The tool time accidents were genuinely dangerous.
How true.
Al, I was going to get to that.
The physical comedy on Home Improvement's fictional show within a show, Tool Time, involved elaborate accidents where things exploded, collapsed, or malfunctioned in Tim Taylor's face. These weren't computer-generated effects or carefully controlled stunts. They were real explosions, real collapses, real accidents that put Tim Allen and Richard Karn in genuine danger every single week. The production used actual tools, real electricity, and functional machinery to maintain authenticity, which meant that when something went wrong on camera, it was actually going wrong. Allen suffered numerous injuries over 8 seasons, including burns from real fire effects, cuts from flying debris, and at least one concussion from a prop that hit him harder than intended. Richard Karn, who played Al, was nearly electrocuted during a scene involving power tools and water, an accident that stopped production for days while safety protocols were reviewed. The stunt coordinators constantly warned that someone was going to be seriously injured or cold, but the producers insisted on maintaining the show's commitment to practical effects over safer alternatives. Insurance companies repeatedly threatened to drop coverage unless safety measures improved, forcing some modifications, but never eliminating the fundamental danger. Cast members joked nervously that Tool Time was the most dangerous job in television comedy, and they weren't entirely wrong. All what looked like harmless slapstick to audiences at home represented real risks that Allen and Karn accepted as part of their jobs, performing stunts that stunt professionals would have demanded hazard pay to attempt. Number 13. Pamela Anderson's departure caused a ratings crisis.
And now Bimford Tools is proud to present Tool Time with its very special guest host,
I was just there. They said I wasn't a priority.
Why? Was there a guy with a whole table stuck to his head?
Pamela Anderson played Tool Time girl Lisa for the first 2 seasons before leaving to star in Baywatch, and her departure created unexpected problems for Home Improvement. Anderson had become surprisingly popular with audiences, her brief appearances generating significant viewer interest, and making Tool Time segments more appealing to male demographics the show was trying to attract. When she left, producers scrambled to replace her with Debbie Dunning as Heidi, but the transition wasn't smooth. Early episodes with Heidi saw noticeable ratings drops, particularly among younger male viewers who'd been watching partly because of Anderson's presence. Focus groups revealed that audiences found Heidi less interesting than Lisa, not because Dunning was less talented, but because she was playing the role differently, less flirtatious and more competent, which changed the dynamic. Producers panicked and pressured Dunning to be more like Anderson, sexier and more decorative. Advice that Dunning resented but had to follow to keep her job. The network considered bringing Anderson back, offering her more money and better terms, but she'd already committed to Baywatch and had no interest in returning to a supporting role. It took nearly a full season for Heidi to find her footing, and for audiences to accept the new dynamic. The incident revealed how much Home Improvement had been coasting on Anderson's popularity without realizing it, and how difficult it was to replace lightning in a bottle once it decided to leave for a beach in a red swimsuit. Number 12. Tyron Noah Smith's parents stole his money.
Down the basement. Because one day, boys, you will have a cold woman of your own. You have to learn how to light her
Mom
furnace.
wrote a book a while back, and she said when you first started doing the show, you didn't know who Tim Allen was.
No, we had to look up his comedy act and find out, and it was...
Tyron Noah Smith, who played youngest son Mark, earned millions of dollars during his 8 seasons on Home Improvement. When he turned 18 and gained access to his trust fund, he discovered that most of his money was gone, taken by his parents who'd been managing his finances throughout his childhood. Smith's parents had used his earnings to fund their own lifestyle, purchasing expensive homes, cars, and luxury items while their son worked 12-hour days on a television set. When confronted, they offered various justifications and excuses, claiming the money had been spent on Mark's behalf or was owed to them for managing his career. Smith sued his parents for misappropriation of his earnings, a painful legal battle that destroyed their relationship permanently. The case highlighted the lack of protections for child actors, even decades after the Coogan Law was supposed to prevent exactly this kind of parental theft. Smith eventually recovered some of his money through settlements, but the emotional damage was irreparable. He became estranged from his family, developed substance abuse problems, and struggled with the realization that his parents had viewed him primarily as an income source rather than a son. The betrayal embittered him toward the entire entertainment industry, which he blamed for creating a system where children could be exploited by the people supposed to protect them. Years later, Smith spoke openly about what had happened, hoping to warn other child actors to protect themselves from parents who saw dollar signs instead of children, who would sacrifice their kids' financial futures for temporary luxury and comfort. Number 11. The show almost ended. After season 6.
Is that car running?
No one ever gets detention on the first day of school.
I wouldn't say no one.
What did you do? No.
By 1997, Home Improvement was still massively popular, but Tim Allen was ready to quit. He'd been playing Tim Taylor for 6 years, felt creatively exhausted, and wanted to focus on his emerging film career. Allen informed Disney and ABC that he wouldn't sign a new contract beyond season 6, that it was time to end the show while it was still successful, rather than letting it decline into mediocrity. The networks panicked because Home Improvement was one of their most valuable properties, generating enormous advertising revenue and anchoring their Tuesday night lineup. They offered Allen increasingly absurd amounts of money to continue, eventually reaching a deal that made him one of the highest paid actors in television history at that time, reportedly earning over $1 million per episode for seasons 7 and 8. The money was enough to convince Allen to stay, but his heart wasn't in it anymore, and the show's quality suffered. Storylines became repetitive, the writing felt tired, and Allen's performance lost the energy that had defined earlier seasons. Cast members knew the show was running on fumes, but couldn't say anything publicly because they needed the jobs and the paychecks. Patricia Richardson later admitted that season 7 and 8 felt like going through the motions, that everyone knew they were past their creative peak, but the financial incentives were too strong to walk away. The show that should have ended triumphantly after 6 seasons instead limped through 2 more years because the network valued profit over artistic integrity, and Allen valued his paycheck over creative satisfaction. Number 10. Richard Karn got the role. Because of a speeding ticket,
To our Tool Time salute.
Food fight! To college. In today's competitive college environment,
And welcome to Tool Time, the show with more power. Or
Richard Karn almost didn't audition for Home Improvement at all. He was driving to an audition for a different show when a police officer pulled him over for speeding. While writing the ticket, the officer noticed headshots and a script on Karn's passenger seat and asked what he was auditioning for. Karn explained that he was an actor trying to make it in Hollywood, just trying to get to auditions on time. The officer mentioned that his wife worked in casting and had just been talking about a new show looking for someone to play a tool expert sidekick. He suggested Karn should look into it, even though Karn had never heard of Home Improvement and wasn't on any casting lists. Desperate for work and figuring he had nothing to lose, Karn tracked down the casting office and managed to get himself added to the audition schedule. He showed up without an appointment, talked his way past the receptionist, and ended up reading for producers who hadn't planned to see him that day. His chemistry with Tim Allen was immediate and undeniable. The dynamic between them exactly what the show needed. Within a week, Karn was offered the role of Al Borland, a job that would define his career for 8 seasons and beyond. If he hadn't been speeding that day, if he'd encountered a different police officer, if he hadn't had the nerve to crash an audition he wasn't invited to, Al Borland might have been played by someone else entirely, and Home Improvement might have failed for lack of the perfect sidekick dynamic that made Tool Time work. Number 9. Patricia Richardson. Nearly walked out over sexist writing.
Hi. I'm sorry your poker night turned out to be a bust.
Well, it certainly wasn't.
You were charming the pants off those women today. Why don't you do that with me anymore?
By season 3, Patricia Richardson was fed up with how Jill Taylor was being written. Despite being established as an intelligent woman pursuing higher education, Jill's storylines increasingly revolved around nagging Tim, overreacting to minor problems, or being the humorless buzzkill who didn't understand male bonding. Richardson felt the character was devolving into a tired sitcom wife stereotype, and she wasn't wrong. The writers, predominantly male, seemed more interested in Tim's adventures and misadventures than in developing Jill as a three-dimensional character. Richardson started refusing to perform certain lines, calling out sexist jokes and table reads, and demanding rewrites that gave Jill more agency and complexity. Her pushback created tension with Tim Allen, who felt Richardson was being difficult and slowing down production with unnecessary complaints. The writers resented her interference, viewing it as an actress overstepping her role. The conflict reached a breaking point when Richardson threatened to leave the show entirely, arguing that she wouldn't continue playing a character that reinforced negative stereotypes about women. Disney executives intervened, recognizing that losing Jill would destroy the show. They mandated that writers develop stronger storylines for Richardson, including her return to college and eventual career in psychology. The improved writing came too late to fully salvage Richardson's feelings about the role. She later admitted that she spent much of the series frustrated by the writing and feeling that Jill never reached the potential the character deserved, that she'd fought for incremental improvements when what was needed was fundamental change in how the writers viewed women. Number 8. The Binford Tools. Just Dharma product placement was unprecedented.
Of course, you all know my assistant, Al Borland. Yeah!
If you want to get it really clean, we suggest using Binford's 6100 spark plug cleaner.
Home Improvement broke new ground in television product placement through its fictional Binford Tools brand. But what audiences didn't know was how the arrangement actually worked. Binford wasn't a real company, but real tool manufacturers paid enormous sums to have their products appear on the show, disguised as Binford branded items. The show created a fake brand specifically to avoid accusations of being one long commercial, while still collecting massive product placement fees from multiple companies. Sears, Craftsman, DeWalt, and other tool manufacturers competed to have their products featured, paying sometimes 6 figures for prominent placement in a single episode. The revenue from these arrangements was so substantial that it essentially subsidized the show's production costs, allowing for bigger budgets and more elaborate sets. But it also created ethical questions about the line between entertainment and advertising. Critics argued that Home Improvement was essentially a 30-minute commercial, masquerading as a sitcom, that the constant focus on tools and home improvement served corporate interests more than storytelling. ABC defended the arrangement, claiming that the product placement was organic to a show about a home improvement host, and that viewers benefited from seeing real products even if they were rebranded. Behind the scenes, the product placement requirements sometimes dictated storylines, with writers forced to incorporate specific tools or projects because manufacturers had paid for that exposure. Creative decisions were being made not based on what served the story, but what served corporate sponsors, turning home improvement into one of television's earliest examples of content created primarily to facilitate advertising, rather than advertising serving content. Number 7. Zachary. Ty Bryan's drinking problem? Success started on set.
But I'm a growing boy. Just because somebody stunted your growth doesn't mean you need to take it out on me.
Is this the only drug you're doing?
Yes.
How much are you smoking?
I don't know, not that much.
Once a week, once a month, what?
Mom, I do it when I go to parties. It's just a way to kick...
Zachary. Ty Bryan, who played oldest son Brad, began drinking alcohol while still a teenager working on home improvement. And the cast and crew knew about it, but did nothing to intervene. Bryan was struggling with the pressures of child stardom, the expectations placed on him, and the lack of normal adolescence. He started drinking as a coping mechanism, initially just at parties and on weekends. But by his late teens, he was showing up to set hungover, sometimes still intoxicated from the night before. The signs were obvious to anyone paying attention. Bloodshot eyes, difficulty remembering lines, occasional slurred speech, erratic behavior. But Disney and the producers made a calculated decision to ignore the problem as long as Bryan continued functioning professionally. They didn't want the scandal of a child actor's substance abuse, didn't want to deal with the production delays of mandating treatment, and frankly didn't want to acknowledge their complicity in creating an environment where a teenager felt driven to self-medicate. Tim Allen, himself a recovering addict, was reportedly aware of Bryan's drinking, but never confronted him directly, later expressing regret about his silence. Patricia Richardson tried to talk to Bryan about her concerns, but was rebuffed and eventually stopped trying. The adults who should have protected Bryan instead protected the production, prioritizing the show's schedule and reputation over a teenager's well-being. Bryan's drinking continued and worsened after home improvement ended, contributing to personal and legal problems that have followed him into adulthood. Years later, Bryan discussed his addiction struggles openly, noting that they began during his time on the show and that nobody with the power to help him actually did. Number 6. Wilson's backstory was never planned.
I'm afraid that reality as we know it is someone else's dream. When the dreamer wakes, never forget losing my first love, Debbie Ann. We were in 4th grade. I guess we were about 9 years of age. We were inseparable.
Earl Hindman's character. Wilson was supposed to be a simple device, the wise neighbor who dispensed advice with no real backstory or complexity. But Hindman refused to play Wilson as a one-dimensional sage, insisting that the character needed depth, history, and believable reasons for his unusual wisdom. He began adding details about Wilson's past in his performances, referencing travels, academic credentials, life experiences that weren't in the scripts. Writers noticed that audiences responded positively to these glimpses of Wilson's mysterious background and started incorporating them into storylines. Over 8 seasons, Wilson evolved from a gimmick into arguably the show's most interesting character, a man with advanced degrees in multiple fields, extensive world travels, knowledge of obscure cultural practices, and a past that was revealed gradually and tantalizingly. None of this was planned. It emerged organically from Hindman's determination to make Wilson a real person rather than a plot device. The writers eventually created entire episodes exploring Wilson's background, his family, his romantic life, giving the character a richness that hadn't been in the original conception. Ironically, the character Hindman fought to deepen was also the one that trapped him behind a fence, unable to show his face. The complexity he brought to Wilson made the character beloved, but also made the fence gimmick more frustrating because audiences could tell there was a fully developed person back there, but were never allowed to see him completely. Hindman created his own prison, making Wilson so interesting that the show would never let him be fully visible. Number 5. The show's conservative values were carefully calculated.
I really tried. When was the last time that you put on something like this for me?
I put that on, I'd be arrested, honey.
don't you ever do that again. That was a really important call.
Excuse me, who do you think you're talking to?
Not my friends, they...
Home Improvement's portrayal of traditional family values and gender roles wasn't accidental or naive. It was a carefully calculated business decision to appeal to conservative audiences who felt alienated by other sitcoms of the era. While shows like Roseanne and Married with Children were pushing boundaries and questioning traditional family structures, Home Improvement deliberately positioned itself as a safe alternative, celebrating conventional masculinity, traditional marriage, and patriarchal family dynamics. Tim Allen's comedy was built around the idea that men naturally understand tools and sports, while women naturally understand emotions and domestic matters, reinforcing gender stereotypes that other shows were actively challenging. This wasn't because the creators genuinely believed these things, but because market research showed that conservative viewers represented an underserved demographic willing to watch a show that validated their worldview. The strategy worked brilliantly, with Home Improvement becoming one of the highest-rated shows of the 90s by giving conservative audiences what they wanted: a funny, well-made show that didn't challenge their assumptions about how families should function. But the calculated nature of this conservatism created internal conflicts. Patricia Richardson, a self-described feminist, struggled with promoting traditional gender roles she didn't personally agree with. Some writers felt they were pandering rather than creating honest comedy. The show's success required everyone to suppress their personal beliefs and deliver content designed to comfort rather than challenge, to reinforce rather than question. Years later, several people involved with Home Improvement expressed ambivalence about the show's legacy, proud of its quality and success, but uncomfortable with how it reinforced conservative values during a period of significant social change. Number 4. The final season was filmed during Tim Allen's divorce.
You were incredible at that shower. You were funny and charming and sexy. All the women wanted to be married to you.
This is going to be a great show.
During the production of Home Improvement's 8th and final season, Tim Allen was going through a painful divorce from his wife Laura, and the personal crisis affected every aspect of the show. Allen was emotionally devastated, dealing with custody arrangements for his daughter, facing the dissolution of a 15-year marriage, and trying to maintain professional composure while his personal life collapsed. He showed up to set late, sometimes visibly upset, occasionally unable to perform scenes that required emotional availability he simply didn't have. The writers had to adjust storylines on the fly, avoiding anything that hit too close to Allen's real-life situation, creating a bizarre final season where the Taylor marriage had to remain rock solid while Allen's actual marriage was ending. Patricia Richardson, who'd had her own conflicts with Allen over the years, showed unexpected compassion, covering for him when he struggles, adjusting her own performance to help him through difficult scenes. The rest of the cast tiptoed around Allen's pain, trying to be supportive while maintaining the fiction that everything was fine. Behind the scenes, the show that was supposed to celebrate family values was being made by a star whose own family was disintegrating, creating a dissonance that affected everyone involved. The final episode, which features a touching reconciliation between Tim and Jill, was particularly difficult for Allen to film because it represented the happy ending his real marriage wouldn't get. Years later, Allen admitted that the final season was the hardest work he'd ever done, not because of the material, but because he was performing happiness while experiencing profound loss. Number 3. ABC wanted a spin-off that never happened.
I just had one of those days where I couldn't get out of the office, and then on the way over here, my car stalled.
I'll take a look at it. Al should look at it. He should look at it.
Eileen?
When Home Improvement ended in 1999, it was still popular enough that ABC desperately wanted to keep the franchise alive through a spin-off. Multiple concepts were developed, including a show following Randy in Costa Rica, a series about Al and Trudy's married life, and even a Tool Time spin-off where Al hosted the show without Tim. Scripts were written, pilots were considered, serious money was offered to various cast members to continue their characters. But Tim Allen refused to allow any of it, using his contractual approval over spin-offs to kale every proposal. Allen's reasoning was that Home Improvement's story was complete, that extending it through spin-offs would dilute the brand and potentially damage the show's legacy. But there was another factor. Allen didn't want anyone else profiting from the Home Improvement universe without him, and didn't want to watch other cast members succeed in shows he wasn't part of. His ego couldn't handle the possibility that an Al Borland show might be successful without Tim Taylor. Richard Karn was particularly disappointed because he'd been offered significant money to star in a Tool Time spin-off, and saw it as his chance to step out of Allen's shadow. Jonathan Taylor Thomas had already made clear he wanted nothing to do with any spin-off, but Karn was ready and willing. Allen's veto ended his opportunity and ABC's hopes for extending the franchise. The network was furious, viewing Allen's decision as selfish and short-sighted, but he had the contractual power and used it. Home Improvement ended completely because Tim Allen preferred that outcome to the possibility of the show continuing without him. Number 2. The show paid millions to real tool companies for silence. While Home Improvement made enormous amounts of money from product placement, they also paid significant sums to actual tool companies to prevent them from complaining about how their products were portrayed. Every Tool Time accident involved real tools being used incorrectly, often dangerously, demonstrating exactly what not to do with power equipment. Tool manufacturers were understandably concerned that the show was making their products look dangerous and encouraging unsafe behavior. Lawsuits were threatened by multiple companies worried about liability if someone copied a Tool Time stunt and got hurt. Disney's solution was to pay these companies for what amounted to negative product placement, essentially buying their silence about how the show portrayed tool use. The agreement stipulated that manufacturers wouldn't publicly criticize the show or pursue legal action over safety concerns in exchange for substantial annual payments. This created a bizarre situation where companies were being paid to allow their products to be shown, causing accidents and injuries, the opposite of typical product placement arrangements. Safety organizations and consumer advocates criticized these deals, arguing that tool companies were prioritizing profit over public safety by allowing dangerous tool use to be portrayed for comedy. But the manufacturers defended the arrangements, claiming that Home Improvement's obvious comedy context meant no reasonable person would actually copy what they saw. Behind the scenes, lawyers for both Disney and the tool companies constantly monitored the show, reviewing scripts to ensure that accidents didn't cross legal lines that might expose either party to liability. The show that celebrated tools was built on agreements designed to protect everyone involved from the consequences of portraying those same tools unsafely. Number 1. Tim Allen refused to film the original series finale. The Home Improvement series finale that aired in May 1999 wasn't the episode originally written by the show's creators. The original finale was much more ambitious, featuring significant changes to the characters' lives, including Tim accepting a job offer that would move the family out of Detroit, representing major life changes rather than maintaining status quo. Tim Allen read the script and absolutely refused to film it, arguing that Home Improvement fans wanted comfort and closure, not upheaval and uncertainty. He demanded a complete rewrite that kept everything essentially the same, with the Taylors staying in their house, Tim and Jill's marriage solid, the boys on predictable paths, Wilson still dispensing wisdom from behind his fence. The writers were furious, believing their original finale was more honest and emotionally resonant, that real families face big changes, and that pretending otherwise was dishonest. But Allen had final approval and used it, forcing a rewrite that resulted in the safe, comfortable finale that aired. What audiences got was an episode where nothing really happened, where the biggest event was Brad leaving for college, where the show essentially ended exactly where it had always been. Critics noted the finale's lack of ambition, calling it disappointingly predictable, but audiences seemed satisfied with the lack of disruption. Years later, one of the original writers discussed the rejected finale in an interview, describing it as far more interesting and emotional than what actually aired, but acknowledging that Allen was probably right about what audiences wanted, even if it wasn't what the show deserved artistically. Bonus fact: Wilson's fence wasn't tall enough.
Well, the manufacturer says it looks like an alien spaceship. I think it looks like a big Jiffy Pop container.
You know, I tend to agree with you.
They changed it.
Well, it was a lot of fun, even though I can't remember one funny thing that happened. But I'm gonna miss it.
Earl Hindman stood 6 feet tall, which created an immediate problem for the Wilson character, whose face needed to remain hidden. The original fence design was only 5 feet high, completely inadequate for obscuring Hindman's face. The production team scrambled to find solutions, raising the fence to 6 feet 6 inches, but Hindman could still see over it comfortably when standing normally. Directors had to get creative, positioning Hindman in slight crouch positions, using camera angles that made the fence appear taller, and placing props strategically to block different parts of his face depending on the scene. In some episodes, you can notice Hindman's unnatural posture, the slight bend in his knees that he maintained throughout, takes to keep his face properly hidden. The show also used a rotating series of fence toppers, lattice work, plants, and decorative elements that could be adjusted based on Hindman's position and the camera angle. Outside scenes were particularly challenging because natural terrain variations meant the fence height was inconsistent. In Wilson's backyard, the production built platforms of varying heights that Hindman could stand on to ensure his face remained obscured, regardless of where the scene took place. After 8 seasons of contorting himself behind an inadequate fence, Hindman had chronic back problems that he attributed directly to the unnatural positions he maintained for years. The simple gimmick that defined his character required constant physical adjustment and eventually took a real toll on his body. Home Improvement sold us the perfect American family while hiding dysfunction behind every power tool. Tim Allen's criminal past, child actors exploited and struggling, creative battles that nearly destroyed the show, all buried beneath laugh tracks and heartwarming moments. The show that taught us about family values was built on secrets, compromises, and battles nobody wanted audiences to see. Hit subscribe for more secrets from shows that weren't what they seemed.